Hi, and welcome to Matt Holman Talks Mental Health, the podcast where I have the opportunity to sit down and chat to amazing humans about their journeys and their life with mental health. For this episode, I'm so happy to introduce Dave Rogers to the conversation. Welcome, Dave.
It's great to join you, Matt. I'm really privileged to be able to join you today.
You're more than welcome. Lovely to see you and to meet you virtually. We've not met in person, unfortunately, yet. One day it will happen, I'm sure. But just very quick introduction from my side. So Dave and I, we've met through a mutual connection. One of my team, actually, or one of the team at Simpler has introduced me to Dave and said, you need to chat to him, have a conversation, find out a bit more about his journey. And that's why we're here. So Dave, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yes, so I'm Dave Rogers. I'm Chief Business Explorer at Fueled, Fit and Fired Up, and I use my curiosity to help people build better businesses.
Brilliant. Chief Business Explorer. I love that. Excellent. So we'll no doubt delve into that a little bit.
Yeah.
The purpose of these conversations, of course, is to learn a bit more about who you are, why you do what you do, why you're passionate about what you do. So I'm going to ask you to tell us a bit of a story, tell us a bit of a journey, Dave. Tell us a bit about your journey with mental health.
Yeah, so I think mine, I'll probably wind back about, it's coming up to 3.5 years now. And as we were discussing before we went live, I spent 27 years in working for corporate PLCs. Really enjoyable career, lots of highs, lots of lows, all of those sort of things. But as I got to December 2019, I just had this feeling where I was just tired of being tired. And I think a lot of people who are hopefully listening to this can probably resonate that when you're on that hamster wheel of corporate life. And so I took a decision at that point that I needed to do something different. And so I was thinking, right, I need to exercise better, I need to eat healthier. And that's what I started doing, the usual, new year, new me, January resolutions that we all commit to. And yeah, that's where it started in the January. And then, of course, fast forward a couple of months into March 2020, and the whole world goes into lockdown. And in some respects, it was possible. I don't believe in luck per se. I always say it's sort of preparation meets opportunity. But I certainly think in that instance that my decision, the timing of it was just so important for me and people around me that I took that decision to focus on my health at that point.
Brilliant. So that focus point, so coming in 2020, there was obviously a difference between those two times when you sort of said, I'm tired of being tired. I think that's quite an interesting quote you made there, or statement you made there. Can you describe, so when you say you were tired of being tired, so that was something that was around for a long time, was it? Or was that something that just sort of all of a sudden there was a convergence of a moment in time?
Yeah, I think it's one of those times. I think reflection's always important, isn't it? And I think when I reflect back on that time, I think I then reflected back over the 27 years of my career since then, and I think there were certainly other times where I'd reached that point.
Yeah.
But this time it was almost, as you say, it was probably a culmination of it happening, once every 2 or 3 years, or at specific points when it's busy, or you're having difficult times in life and work. And I think, yeah, that December 2019 moment was very much I really need to do something. And again, I think I think age may have played a part in that as well. Sort of, I was in my I'm still just about in my late 40s, but I was in my late 40s at that point, and you sort of go, right, actually, I need to think about my long term
Yeah.
sort of health a little bit more. And that moment where you take that sort of I suppose midlife moment to refocus on what you're doing, and that's led to a number of other changes in my life, as well as the health journey, really. So
I find it's fascinating because there must have been a moment where you took notice properly. You woke. It's almost like an awakening, isn't it, to the reality?
yeah.
And do you remember what happened or what changed that? Did you? I don't know. Let me just throw out a thought. Did you look in the mirror? Did you read something? Did you hear something? Did somebody say something? What sort of changed your mind?
It's really strange. So it doesn't matter where I've worked, where I've worked in a multi-floor office, I've always taken the stairs. Never. It didn't matter whether I was on the fourth floor, fifth floor, first, second, doesn't matter. And I remember going into the office where I was working, and I walked up 2 flights of stairs and actually got to the top of the stairs, and I thought, I'm really out of breath here.
Right.
And it
Yeah.
wasn't, and I wasn't particularly, um, I wouldn't say I was particularly unfit, you know,
Yeah.
but I certainly wasn't as fit as I am now, and perhaps should have been. And there was a moment where I thought to myself, I need to do something about this. And then it's you sort of, again, as you said, there's that moment where you start thinking about it a little bit more and reflecting, and then you go, actually, it's not just about me being physically tired, it's about me being mentally tired,
Mm. Yeah.
and and sort of, I suppose, cognitive fatigue and all of those sort of things that weren't necessarily, even 3 years ago, 3 4 years ago, weren't as prevalent in the corporate workplace as they are now, since probably the since COVID and things like that. And I think that was probably that moment where I went, right, I need to do something about this.
Yeah.
You know.
So talk me through the steps of what you did. What did you do?
Okay.
Tell us.
So it was almost a case of going, right, I need to find something that I am going to enjoy,
Yep.
and that I'm going to be passionate about from an exercise point of view.
Yep.
So I played football for many years up until my mid 30s. I then did a little bit of running, and I ran, a half marathon,
Okay.
and then didn't really do any running after that. I tried cycling, all of these things, and then I thought to myself, I'm going to try hit training. So I was doing, body coach Joe Wicks type stuff, and I thought, actually, this is really helping me here, because it's 25, 30, 40 minutes out of my day. It's not a huge amount of time. I can do it in the morning, refreshed, go to work. So that was the first thing. And then it was just looking at what I was eating. And I probably moved to I am predominantly plant-based
Okay.
diet now. And that sort of helped with my wife being vegetarian. So therefore, it made just that transition that little bit easier.
Yeah.
And those were the two main things that I started doing, really, was to look at physical health from a fitness and dietary point of view,
Yeah.
which obviously then has an impact on mental health and emotional health
Sure.
and all that sort of stuff. And then I think, obviously, again, the lockdown and that point where we were all told we could only actually go out of the house once, you sort of go, right, I'm going to make that count. So as we were discussing earlier, we both enjoy getting out and about in the fresh air, in the countryside.
Yeah.
And so therefore there was this almost realization, and again, this might resonate with a number of the listeners, that there's all this fantastic stuff around us that we just take for granted all the time,
Yeah.
and actually start exploring, what's around us. And those were probably the three things that were the main catalysts for me and my personal sort of change.
Brilliant. Yeah. And interesting. So I'm going to ask you, and I hope it's okay to ask this question. So you spoke about your wife briefly in there.
Yeah.
That your wife. So from her perspective, was she saying anything about you making these changes? Was there much in terms of sort of conversation around that? Did you feel supported in there as well?
Yeah, most definitely, supported. I think it was uh, it was a moment where, not that there was necessarily a behavioural change, manifesting in that sense,
Yeah.
but I certainly think there was you know, should probably say, I wasn't as happy as maybe as I had been. And I think that, although that technically is a behavioural change, but what I mean, there was no, snappiness or things like that necessarily. But yeah,
Yeah.
certainly she's hugely supportive.
Yeah.
As we both are in terms of our own health journeys together, I suppose, and
Yeah.
that's the key thing.
Yeah, brilliant. And I think that's something that's really important for people to understand as well, is often the people around us, and this is why I sort of was trying to establish that connection with you as well, is they tell us things that we sometimes don't want to listen to, and we don't want to
Yeah,
hear, and we don't take notice of it. And then eventually we get to a point where we go, actually they're probably quite accurate in what they're saying because they're seeing it. And as much as we don't want to accept it, it's that denial, isn't
Yeah,
it? It's nothing to me, it's everybody else. And I used to be like that, by the way. And that's where,
yeah,
on reflection, you go, actually, what people were saying was probably well, it is their truth, isn't it? So
yeah. I'll digress slightly, but that's just reminded me. You just reminded me of when I did my insights behavioral profile
okay.
at work. And for anybody who's not done that, you get quite a comprehensive, detailed
Sure.
narrative about yourself and what makes you tick as an individual and how you can interact better with others. And I remember reading that report, going, "That's not me." And
Really?
then sort of passing it on to my wife and her reading it and going,
That's
"That's
so
exactly you."
yeah. It's that denial thing, isn't it? We're all denying nothing.
Yeah,
Who answered the questions? You
yeah,
answered the question, right? So you're thinking, oh my God, they don't know anything about
yeah,
rubbish.
yeah.
I think that's amazing. So let's move forward the dial slightly. So obviously you were in corporate for a very long time, so there's a lot of parallels in our worlds here, Dave, actually, when
Yeah,
your story, and you're talking about leaving football when you're mid-30s, same running,
yeah,
though I still run, but so
yeah,
what happened next then? So obviously you sort of left corporate world, and there's a book behind you on the shelf, which
yeah.
that as well. For anybody that isn't watching this, they'll be listening, going, I have no idea what that means. So we'll get to that. So tell me a bit about that journey then. So what changed for you? What did you want to do? How did you set it out?
Yeah, so I suppose uh, again, I took, I've been incredibly lucky that, or privileged, should I say, to been able to take a lot of positives out of what's been happening in the world over the last 3 years. And I know it's been a hugely difficult time for lots of people. And I think the business I was working in at the time the pandemic came along was hospitality.
Yeah,
So we were shut down overnight
yeah,
on I think it was the 23rd of March 2020. And so therefore, whilst I was senior in the organisation I was working in, and we stayed working throughout, apart from a period of about 3 weeks, uh, there was a lot of time on my hands to sort of think about what I was doing. And at that point, going back to your question about what did I do as an individual, one of the other things I did was join a Facebook group called How to Be Brilliant, which is run by a gentleman called Michael Heppel, who I had the privilege of seeing speak at a previous company. Followed his journey, he launched this group, I joined it, and it was full of like-minded, passionate people who wanted to help everybody with whatever they could to get through the situation we found ourselves in.
right.
So I was sharing all the stuff I was doing from a health perspective.
Yeah,
Um, and alongside that, I was then having people reaching out to me, either friends or friends of friends who had small businesses or in some instances large businesses, and they were saying to me, "Look, Dave, you work for a big PLC. You know, we need some help understanding furlough schemes, C-bills, loans, business rates, and whilst that wasn't my bag, yes, I'm a qualified accountant, but it's fair to say I've done no proper accountancy since I passed my exams 20 plus
parallel worlds. Yeah,
yeah, 20 plus years ago, I've been very much more in the commercial business partnering, helping people understand the impact of their decisions on the commercial aspects of a business. But I was signposting them to the right places, and so that carried on for about 6 months. And alongside that, I was still sharing all the fitness stuff. And then Michael came to me and said, "Oh, I'm launching something called Write That Book Masterclass to help people who want to write a book." And I said, "Well, I've got no interest in writing a book,
yeah,
sort of at that point." And we sort of, I said, "Well, I'll join the pop up group," and within a week, so this would have been October 2020. Now I've been helping loads of small businesses, done this pop up group, and by the end of that week, I've designed the front cover of my book, got the title, written the first chapter, and won a competition for Michael to write the foreword for it. So at the end of that week, I couldn't really turn back then
yeah,
and to write the book. So I started writing the book in October 2020. That's all about practical solutions for people to help improve their physical, mental, and emotional well-being.
yeah.
And I always describe it as it's a regular book for regular people written by a regular bloke. So it's some very straightforward techniques, all of which I've tried,
Yeah.
some of which stuck, some of which haven't, but I've made sure I've shared everything that I've tried, or what's inspired me to make the differences within the book. So that was May 2021. I published the book, so it's coming up to be nearly 2 years old now. And alongside that, I was trying to do my day job, and people were then reaching back out to me at the point we were sort of unwinding or starting to unwind from the restrictions in the UK, to say, right, my business has been flying. I need some support strategically about what a plan might look like. Or people were coming to me going, I need to work out how to survive. And we're willing to pay you. And I'm sort of sitting here thinking, oh, there's something in this. I'm helping the community that's helped me get to where I am today, and things like that. So I started exploring that being a business model for me, essentially, and then eventually, come September of last year, I transitioned out of the corporate world completely and went full time with my business consultancy, which has got the same name as my book, because my business consultancy, as I said in the intro, is about building better businesses, but I'll describe it as being around their commercial health and their people being the most important asset, and therefore how do we apply, in your world, how do we apply the health and well-being aspect to the people in the organization to get them to be the best versions of they can be, to help improve the business. And that's essentially where going from the lifestyle change in sort of December 2019, Jan 2020, to effectively now where I am. Yeah.
It's great. What an incredible journey. I love it. I love it. The fact that you said there was never a book. We weren't going to do a book, and then look what happened, and now you have a book, and the book title is Fueled, Fit, and Fired Up. Is that right?
That's right. That's correct. Yes.
And it's not quite easy to see it. I don't know if you want to reach around and grab it and show it.
Yeah, I'll just grab that up. Yeah.
So there you go. Just take the invitation. There you go. But that's shameless plugging. I love it when people have their books in the background. I definitely need to write. I need to write a book about these stories, because I've just found this it's so fascinating to hear people's journeys. And so a new life was created in the last months. A new world, new workspace, new environment for you. How have you felt about that? How's the journey been so far? Because it's always lovely to hear about new businesses coming out.
Yeah, it's been really, the word I would use to describe it is liberating, I think.
Yeah. Hello.
And just because, and that sort of whole sort of flexibility that it gives me to be able to go and help whoever I want, whenever I want, and widen my widen my knowledge. And because I'm such a curious individual, that allows me to go and, like we're speaking today, I'm recording this podcast, and meet new people. And again, the virtual world that we now live in allows us to expand our networks, ever more, and be able to speak to various different peoples and work remotely with organizations and things like that. And I think it's really, I think I've really found my passion and purpose.
Brilliant. Yeah.
In life. And I think the one thing I would say again is, it shows to me as well that it doesn't matter how old you are, you can find a new passion in life and actually realize, something whilst and it wasn't that I'd necessarily fallen out of love with the business I worked with, the job I was doing, the industry I was working in. It was just I found something that I'm more, passionate about, and I can work. It was interesting because one of the conversations I had with, I think it was possibly with my wife actually, again, was around, it's not about me not wanting to work full time. It's about me not wanting to work full time for the same organization, and trying to impart all the knowledge that, and again, like you will have gained over your time in the corporate world, that knowledge that we gain and those frameworks that we operate within and all of those sort of things, actually going, how can I help other businesses get better by sharing that knowledge with them? And that's what it's all about.
Brilliant. I love that. So, let me just touch on anxiety a little bit. So being a solopreneur or an entrepreneur, or whatever you want to determine your life is now, working yourself, I guess, is probably the best way. What anxieties do you have now, or are they gone because of where you created? Do you feel?
I think it would be very remiss of me not to, touch on the fact, there is a commercial and financial pressure that comes from starting your own business.
Yeah.
But I think again is I've been privileged to work with a number of fantastic people in all the organisations I've worked with before, who have also taken a very similar journey.
Okay.
Some have been doing it for 10, 15 years, some have been doing it for 5 years, and I've got those within my network to be able to, I suppose, lean on, sort of almost try and gain as much knowledge as also I was curious about all the challenges they faced,
Yeah,
to
brilliant.
go, right, okay, so what can I do to try and mitigate, some of those things to avoid that, to avoid anxiety. But I would say the that's the only thing really, is the commercial and financial aspect of it, because uh, I don't feel like I'm working,
I
which
get
again,
that. Totally
yeah,
get that.
yeah, that it's not work anymore. It's my, life, and it's the balance that I've created with my life allows me to do these fantastic things and work with these fantastic people and businesses.
It's so fascinating, and we're going into a little bit of the psychology of life and business now, and I think the whole element of when you find your passion and your purpose, money will come. You will attract things to that. You will,
Mm,
albeit you can't necessarily see exactly what that looks like yet, because you can't. It's very difficult to forecast in the sort of work that we do, especially where your product is passion and you're
yeah,
very much in that space, and what you want people to do is connect to that, and then they will pay you. And like you
yeah,
see people coming to you and saying, can you come and work with me and we'll pay you, and you sort of going,
mm,
yeah, of course, but how much what are you buying from me, and what is it? I find that really fascinating, because if you're really passionate, people will feel that and they'll see that, and they'll connect to it. And I think that's the difference between the corporate world sometimes and this space that we're obviously both in a very similar space in many ways.
yeah,
There's many different things. I just found this so interesting and inspiring. And what I love is you've used this word a few times, is being curious, or
yeah,
curiosity. You want to use, depending on how you want to frame it, but it's that continuation of the curiosity that's so important.
yeah.
Do you feel, here's a question, just throwing it out there, as sort of, we've got a few minutes left on this. Do you feel when you were in the corporate world you lost your curiosity?
Uh, I don't think I did,
Okay.
but I don't think I used it, or no, I don't think I used it as much as I could have done to make a difference.
Right. Okay.
Because I think, because of the types of roles I worked in the corporate world, I was working very much with the other non-financial sort of support services within a business. I had to be naturally curious to understand how the business operated, what they were trying to
Okay.
achieve,
Yeah.
what they were looking for, what their goals were. So I was always asking questions, and I was always sort of, I'd like to think I was always somebody that other people within the business would come to for an opinion, because they knew I knew so much about the business.
Hmm.
But I think there's a difference between knowing everything about how the business operates and then really using that to make a difference. But
Yes.
that goes back to your point about, you know, the business has got to be in a place where that is accepting, continual change, or wanting to change, or new innovative ways of working. And
Yes.
actually, if a business isn't in that space, then having somebody who's coming up with lots of curiosity and good ideas doesn't mesh, it doesn't necessarily mesh together again.
Yeah.
Whereas, yeah, I think,
Interesting.
whereas now, that curiosity, I'm deliberately choosing people who have asked me for that my opinion, so therefore I know that they're open to my ideas and suggestions.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
and I think curiosity is, well, I'm just giving my perspective, and I really appreciate your response there as well. Is curiosity is something that we lose sometimes when we're in a moment of, I think back to a corporate career, knowing my role, knowing what I was doing, maybe I wasn't interested in learning too much else, and
yeah,
curiosity sort of like was lower. Now I'm really curious, and like you, I want to know everything about everything as much as I can, and I want to be aware of everything that's coming. I want to know how to support people better. I want to learn about things like neurodiversity and mental health and all the other
mm,
topics that we're covering, in Simpler. And I think that my curiosity has been rekindled since I left corporate world. And I think that's where sometimes people struggle you know, and I think what you're doing and what you've got with your book and your program and the things that you work with, from my perspective, is about helping people to rekindle more about curiosity around life, what it's about, how to look after yourself, how to work it. I don't know, is that a fair assessment of where we are?
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I think also as well is that when you are working for when you are an employee of a single business,
Yeah.
there is probably a point where not quite you've learnt everything about that business, but I think as you will appreciate with the range of clients you guys work with and the range of clients I work with, is you actually start going into different sectors that you've never worked in before.
Yep.
You know, so what, you know, during my corporate career, I was you know, again, I was very privileged to be able to work in construction, car manufacturing, contracting, hospitality for a long length of time. That covered finance, operations, marketing, you know, all different areas. But coming out of that and then being able to go, well, I've got a range of clients that are, you know, a family-owned riding school, a security business, a property business, an education technology provider. You know, there's all these things. All of a sudden, you just go, these are, you know, you'd never go anywhere near it. And I think going back to your comment about curiosity and just sort of losing it, I think that for me goes hand in hand with creativity as well.
Yes.
And you know, if you think about sort of, I'm not frightened to say this on this podcast here, but I'm a big fan of Lego,
Okay.
and I still build and I still, you know, use Lego as a way of going, you know, being curious about, well, how have they designed that, how are they building that, how have they created that. And I think sometimes we have to go back to be a little bit more childlike in some regards around that. You know, anybody who's got, you know, got kids, whether they're young or grown up, can probably, you know, think about that time where they're going, why is that, what's that all about, why is this, why is that like that, and that whole childlike approach to whether it be curiosity, creativity, play, all of those things. I think you're quite right, we lose those, and if we can get those back in whatever we're doing in life, then we're gonna all live better lives and probably get better results from it as well.
Brilliant. I love that. And you know what? I'm all on board with the whole Lego thing. I've played with Lego forever. You know, my mum still has a big box of Lego from when I was a little, me and my mother were little boys, you know, and
Yeah.
and again, if we're together down there, the box of Lego comes out and I'm known to build a pretty mean Lego house. So you know,
Yeah.
it's amazing, but you're right. And I think that is so true. Curiosity, creativity, rekindling that sort of play element is something that I guess right now is really hard for people as well. And you know, I could carry on this conversation with you for forever. You know, it feels like we're so similar in our thoughts and approaches.
Yeah.
We are coming towards the end of this conversation, unfortunately, Dave, because we do have to
Uh-huh.
at some point. But before we close, I'm going to sort of throw it to you to say any final thoughts, quotes, inspiration you want to share with people out there. I will sort of throw it over to the guests to say, look, you close the call or close the conversation. So any
Yeah.
final thoughts?
Yeah. I think for me it's about being okay, not being perfect. And I talk about this a little bit in the book around, actually, you know, a health journey hasn't got to be, or any journey actually, but I'm going to use the health journey particularly, given the subject matter we've been speaking about today, hasn't got to be, you know, 100% clean living all day every day. And you know, there's the techniques that I talk about in the book, one of which is called Beat the Week. And that's probably the bit I'd like to leave the audience with, is like, you know, just make sure you're having more good days than bad days when whatever you're doing, whether it be exercising, whether it be eating healthy, whether it be doing fantastic stuff in your business, whether it be fantastic stuff with your family. It doesn't matter. Just make sure that you're having more good days than bad days, and you know, that will move you in the right direction.
Brilliant. I love that. Great closing thought. More good days than bad days. So I'm definitely signing up to that one. Preferably 7 out of 7 are good days. But you know, 5, 6 days out of 7, not bad going, right? Brilliant stuff. Dave, thank you so much for joining me on this. I really do appreciate it. And I've loved your insights. I've loved your thoughts. You know, everybody out there, check out Dave's work. I will drop the links into this as well. Check out that Fueled, Fit and Fired Up book as well. It's written by Dave's fair hand with great insights and great ideas. So thank you so much, Dave. Really appreciate it. Look after yourself. Take care. All the best of luck for the future. And yeah, I look forward to following your journey as well.
Yeah, cheers, Matt. Thank you very much for your time today.
You're welcome. Bye now.